I might be a little bit early, ladies and gentlemen, but it's for good reason tonight because it's almost like being a kid at Christmas, opening up a Christmas gift because our guest tonight, you just saw him in XCW. You saw him in Rude Awakening, and boy, did he give Eric Mason a rude awakening and some. But there was a twist that he's going to talk about and some. But like kids here opening up our Christmas gifts, our guest tonight is arguably the greatest wrestler, not only in XCW history, but to have ever laced boots, to have come on Sportswire radio history. His resume speaks for itself. 7 times he held the XCW championship. 4 times he held the international championship. 2 times the tag team champion. He was an extreme champion. He's now a 2-time real world champion. He's also a former cruiserweight champion, 2-time extreme king, king of the mountain. Oh, by the way, 2017 was inducted into the XCW Hall of Fame, a long overdue accomplishment. He needs no further introduction, but because he is a Hall of Famer, and as I said in my introduction earlier this afternoon to formally announce him on Sportswire Radio, he is definitely the GOAT. So, ladies and gentlemen, so with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the reigning, defending XCW Real World Champion, Corey Lee. The champ is here. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'll let you know after the show is over where my voice, which again I've been battling a virus where my voice is like literally like still not there, but I'm getting there. But for you, we obviously put that cape on. We go forward, and it is a tremendous honor to have you here. And I can ask you thousands of questions, but I want to stay in the current because I always with somebody like you, and I know you're one of the GOATs. You're a Hall of Famer. I still got to stay in the current day. But for those that are listening and watching, Corey Lee, we hope we get salvation tonight from you. But I have to ask, after just watching Rude Awakening, you defeat Eric Mason, but yet after the match, you grant him a match anyway for your real world championship. And I have to ask, why?
Well, the answer is simple, Tom. I just felt, this rookie needs to be put in his place. He thinks he was so close. He was so close to that lucky 7, right? With his little new age title. He thought he was going to get the international title. He thought he was going to go on, face his best friend, Hunter Houken. It wasn't happening in my book. And I figured, you know what? I'll give him one more chance. I'll put the belt on the line and see if he can manage to actually beat me. But I don't think he can. So with the belt on the line or not, he's not going to come out on top because he didn't win at Rude Awakening. In my opinion, he didn't want it enough.
First of all, you've beaten him multiple times already. And I get the fact it's almost for you. I mean, and obviously you have almost no love for anyone, sir. And you're granting him another match here. But the record books say he lost. There's absolute no reason for him to get another match for your championship.
You're absolutely correct. There is absolutely no reason. And I feel like solidifying another win against him will make him see that he's just not on my level as a champion.
Well, I mean, listen, if we're going to be objective right now, I'm not going to try to be too much of a homer here, but if we're going to be objective, there's nobody in your league. There's nobody who can hold your shoes, put them on. I mean, you are literally like the top of the mountain, not just in XCW. I would dare say, sir, in this sport.
Well, you know what, Tom? I appreciate that. Not many people say that. I appreciate that. Though I would have to argue. I mean, we still have Chris Jones, even
Well,
though
I had Mr. Jones
he is
on a few weeks ago.
he is on a lighter schedule right now, so he's not going full steam ahead like I am still. So
Well, I'll tell you the difference between you and Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones has like the cool hand Luke vibe to him. You just go in there and just do it. You do it every show. It doesn't matter. You just go out there and get the job done. But, again, and it's funny also, I want to continue to talk about this here because you referred to it, which I did in the intro of you, as the real world championship. And obviously there was kind of a fight there where you'd wanted Trinity, who I had on the show here weeks back, to introduce you as the real world champion. Now, she kind of relented after the match, but talk to me about why. And you kind of had this talk here with Venom, and Venom, for whatever reason, shot you down. You were actually being very complimentary to Venom. And at the end of the show, we saw Venom take maybe his most authoritarian role yet as general manager here in XCW, at least in a long time. But talk to me, why do you want to change the title from the New Age to the Real World title?
Well, that's simple, Tom. I feel like at Summer Mania, Brady Branson weaseled his way into a title match he didn't belong in. He didn't belong in that match. And right now we have a champion that's representing EBW as our XCW champion. Who would you rather have? Like I asked Venom, who would you rather have, me or Brady Branson represent XCW? Unfortunately, we have Brady Branson representing us right now.
How does that make you feel then, especially for your championship? And I had ACT on, which I'm sure you're aware of. I had ACT on right before you guys were to square off, and that was one of the most personal feuds I think we've seen in the company in quite a while. Well, your cousin was actually a part of another one of those feuds. I'll get to him later because I know he's going to certainly want to hear his 15 minutes of fame once again back on Sportswire. I'm only goofing to your cousin. But, how does that make you feel, though, that he stole your championship practically?
Honestly, pretty disgusted. I was even more disgusted that it was at the hands of EBW, a company that I put away a long time ago that shouldn't even be here.
I was going to try to move away from that today. We spoke off the air, and I wasn't going to really talk about it.
It's okay.
That.
I can bring it up. I put them away a long time ago, but unfortunately, somebody like Venom went and messed everything up, it seems. It seems it was his fault that they're back, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's talk about Venom then for a second. Obviously, he's our general manager here. So would you say then, is it fair for me to ask, and especially for the XCW fans, that Venom really is the one that should be held responsible for right now XCW struggles and the revival of maybe the strongest incarnation of EBW? Is that a fair statement for me to say, sir?
I feel like it'd be a fair statement. I mean, you've seen after Summer Mania, like when I confronted Venom, I blamed him. It was his fault. I blamed him.
You did. No, you certainly did. And that's a fair point. And we've seen show after show after show. And I guess maybe tonight, when we got the announcement of 4-on-4 and Venom's the captain and Luke Blaze is the captain, maybe XCW, even the numbers. But even then, it's been show after show that XCW's been on the short end of the stick of things. I mean, so his leadership is really to be responsible. And, Fletch has obviously had his struggles with EBW, and then the rest of the locker room has. So I don't even know if I should put this in the right way. Tell me your thoughts on it. I'm going to do it anyway. Would you say then that Venom, in his tenure as general manager right now, he's in a rather tenuous position?
I'd have to agree. I'd have to also say that I feel like Venom should just be fired and replaced at this point. I don't even think he should even be put in this match that he's trying to put himself into. Look at him. He probably can't even get across the ring fast enough to take anybody down.
Well, I'm going to avoid
It's a shame.
I'm going to avoid that in certainly people's body images. I'm going to respectfully avoid that. But I'll ask you a follow-up because it's so fascinating that you said something that I wasn't going to ask you about, Mr. Lee, is that Venom you think should be fired. But then if Venom is fired, who is that person to step up and fill that void and put XCW back on the footing that it could compete and maybe eventually up the odds against EBW?
That's a tough question to answer because I would have no idea at this point. I mean, obviously Emily Moore isn't there anymore to really help out, so we got a board of directors, and who knows who they would even appoint to be GM of the show at this point. Like, I have no clue, unfortunately.
That's a tough call. I mean, I don't know the answer. I mean, should we maybe then try something different in a form of a general manager? Should we try a different position? Should we do something? Because if you say that Venom should be fired, so that's your position, your opinion, that Venom should be fired, there has to be a way to replace him that gives XCW the footing that it needs to compete. That would be my answer to that.
It sounds like to me, uh, unfortunately, maybe XCW will just be put in the ground by EBW
Well,
this time.
obviously, clearly, somebody's been watching my shows on Sportswire because when I spoke with Mr. Jones, a man I know you know very, very well, I had said to
Mhm.
Mr. Jones, I had said, I'm watching EBW week after week on the shows. I'm looking at the roster getting bigger and bigger. Although Aaron Blaze, for whatever reason, rejected a spot in EBW. Now that's his certainly perspective. I'll let Aaron obviously deal with that. But I mean, obviously, it seems to me, and I said this with Chris, that it's almost EBW is going to take over of XCW. Do you see XCW just morphing into EBW TV? We'll be following, instead of all these XCW platforms, there'll be EBW platforms.
Well, it certainly seems that way. I mean, look at some of the people representing XCW. We have ACT, and I mean, like, what's he going to do against this entire group?
He
Eventually, he's going to get
struggled. He has
overwhelmed.
struggled, and he's getting another crack at the your former championship against Brady Branson in a steel cage. I mean, do we really think this time ACT's going to get the job? But that's what some may say.
I mean, he has potential to get it done this time in a steel cage. I mean, who's going to interfere? Unless
True.
EBW comes in there and takes the entire cage down, who's going to interfere this time?
Well,
He
that's
could.
going to be.
He could have Brady Branson's number. He almost had it there at the end of the WrestleMania match. He was
But
close.
almost, I got that, but almost doesn't mean you had it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to be a cross that he's going to have to bear. But to me, again, there's no question right now that EBW has been the most dominant force, not just in XCW, but in all of this sport. And, there's no question that obviously we'll see what happens. I do want to say hello here to somebody that is a big fan of XCW. Good evening, Tom. Absolutely a fan of you, Corey Lee. Since day one, Starstruck Entertainment is by far my favorite tag team. You want to comment on that for a minute? Anything you might want to say to it? Obviously,
Oh man,
I'm sure you know
Starstruck
who his
Entertainment.
father-in-law, by the way. His father-in-law is Festus. Just break the fourth wall for you.
Yeah, Starstruck Entertainment. Back then, that was a good time, but unfortunately, we're here now, and Brendan Stickles officially retired by me. So, unfortunately, Starstruck's gone
Well,
in the
I mean,
past, where it'll
well,
stay.
but you can relive all those great memories right here on XCW's social media platforms, especially on YouTube. XCW All Access, also XCW Shelbyville, XCW Wrestling 1. But if you put at XCW Shelbyville, you can watch all those memories and all the great memories. And I'll get to some of those memories for sure. I promise I'll get to those memories. But I still want to talk in the current tense here because Corey Lee is always in the current tense. So obviously you're back here. You've got the Real World Championship. Did it bother you though a few shows back? And I think it was at Outage where on commentary they said it was actually an upset of you beating Eric Mason. I mean, that had to bother you a little bit. When I heard that comment, I'm like, I have to ask Corey Lee this question.
Hearing something like that on commentary, it's kind of a shame because they should know better, especially with somebody like Eric Mason stepping in the ring with me, a former world champion and all that. They should know better and should be ashamed to even speak during my matches at this point.
Does it bother you that maybe, and we have some different types of younger talent? Certainly ACT has nowhere near the experience that you have. He's obviously had a few years experience. I had him on the show. Certainly Eric Mason is somebody right now you're in the current tense with and probably in the future coming up in Halloween Harvest. But does it bother you that the rookies maybe aren't respecting you as much, or maybe paying their dues to you as that much? Are you trying to prove an example to, let's say, some of the younger talent in XCW, like in a la ACT and certainly in Eric Mason?
I feel like you said something earlier about me being a measuring stick in XCW, and I feel like you're right
Yes, I
about
did.
that. So I feel like having them go against me at this point to see how well they do, you know, it's sink or swim at this point when you're in there. Whether you're going to win against me or you're going to lose against me, you need to prove something to me inside that ring. And if you can't prove it, maybe you shouldn't be in the ring. Maybe you shouldn't be in XCW.
That's a fair point. And tell me your thoughts on this, because I feel like in a lot of ways, when I watch you in the ring, and I said this to you off the air, and I've said this to different people, and I don't want to say it on the air, but different guys have messaged me off the air, and they say, Tom, I see you talk about XCW. I see you bring a lot of the guys on, and Fletch has obviously been breaking character, at least on Fletch for a second. Fletch has always been very generous in terms of bringing on different talent like yourself onto Sportswire, having a relationship with him. He's obviously thanked me personally on the air with some of the shows. I appreciate that very much. But I feel like when I speak to guys and they say XCW, they go automatically, the first thing that comes to mind is you. You remind me in a way of like how Shawn Michaels, when he came back, they used to call him almost like, in a way, the measuring stick, but he was like, when it would come to those big matches, he was like Michael Jordan. It was like there was no way. It didn't matter what shape he was in, didn't matter the frame of mind. He could turn it on like nobody else. You've gone through a lot of injuries. You've dealt with potentially retiring. You had the ACL that put you out of action for a year, but yet very similar to like a Shawn Michaels, you are pretty much like the Michael Jordan of XCW in this sport. What does that make you feel when you hear that?
You know, very surprised to be honest, because when I first started back in 2009, I never ever expected to be one of those top guys that everybody said that about. Because I mean, like most of the time, people would say like it's Chris Jones, Corey Lee, Tommy Merriman, Cynical. Those are like the top four people
Sure.
of all time. That's what they would always say. So to be in that conversation is really surprising for me, to be honest.
But I feel like, yes, now certainly Tommy Merriman held the world title earlier this year. Chris Jones obviously speaks for himself. But I feel like, in a way, though, that the way you worked yourself up the ladder, you were a cruiserweight guy. Then you became a guy that went and held the international title a few times. Then you won King of the Mountain. You won Extreme King. You won the tag titles, as Michael referenced to, and then being a world champion as many times as you have. Now holding the real world title that you have now, but you have climbed your way up, unlike those other guys. I mean, so in a way, I think it is kind of warranted. And like I said, I don't want to name. I named one guy off the air that said this about you, and you've probably actually shared a locker room with him. But the point is that you have earned it because of looking from where you started from, and the company has at the same time, to where you are today. I mean, your reaction to that?
I mean, God, the company started what in 03, 2003,
Yep,
I think. Yeah, I
correct.
started in 2003. I started in 2009. If I had known about XCW in 2003, I would have been there from the beginning. So, I mean, to come in and bust my ass, and work hard all the time. I'm almost at the point of the career, though, where I'm just like, I'm so stressed out being in the ring
Why?
sometimes,
Why are you
I just
stressed
am.
out?
It doesn't seem that way, though, does it? It doesn't seem
No,
that way.
I feel like, honestly, and this is why I really wanted you on, was because yes, you have 14 years experience, whatever it is in XCW, but I actually feel like that you're still fresh and relevant. You remind me almost of like a musician that goes out and, sure, they have 9, 10, 11, 12 albums. Like almost like you're like a Metallica. Metallica just put out 72 seasons. They're playing the album, like they could easily sit on their laurels and play the Black Album the entire time. And, that would be great. They could play End Justice for All, but you're actually not playing the hits. You're going out there every single show. You're competing. I mean, so I look at it in a way that I'm kind of surprised you say some of these things.
Well, like you said, it's been a long time at this point, a long road wrestling. And I mean, like, I've done stuff like for UAW and CBW. I've wrestled for both of
Sure.
them. But like, I've only ever been XCW. That's it,
Yeah,
just XCW.
I feel like there are other people, as we're here right now, with the legendary GOAT. He is the real world champion. He is Corey Lee. We certainly hope to get salvation. I know we are definitely not going to die hard with him right now, but Corey is here with us, and he's talking about his decorated career. But, I feel like in a lot of ways, though, it's warranted here. And I do have some comments, so let me get to them here. Michael wants to say, Corey Lee, absolutely love anytime you are between the ropes or on the mic. Well, you get the chance to watch him every single time on XCW TV. In fact, if you haven't yet, go and watch XCW's latest show. It's on their YouTube page, Rude Awakening, where Corey was a huge part of things, defeating Eric Mason to retain his real world championship. But anyway, still grants him a shot at Halloween Harvest. And management is here with us, and they said that the official debut of the company was March 8th, 2003. But, I wanted to come back and talk about the fact that you have been, for the most part, pretty much XCW, a company guy. Other guys, even Fletch, have been in different places. We see different guys on the roster. They've wrestled elsewhere, different companies. But for the most part in your career, you have been an XCW guy. What does that mean to you?
Well, it just means, oh man, how would I put this? Like, it just feels like I belong in XCW. Some of these other guys are traveling around, going to different states, going to different companies, and that's fine and all. But I like, just want to plant my feet in one spot. Bust my ass for one company and show this company what I'm worth. I understand some people plant their feet in certain companies and stay there for a while.
Sure.
Like we have Aaron Blaze coming down now
Jackson Law
and
is wrestled.
working.
I forget one company, he's a different name, and your company, he's Jackson Law, and he's another guy that's traveled. And Aaron Blaze has certainly got his own issues with EBW, and I'll certainly let Aaron deal with those issues. But obviously, again, talking about the company, and I have to ask you, because I always ask this question to wrestlers, even guys like you who are veterans. What are your goals, let's say, for the rest of the year coming up?
For like just the rest of this year or the next year?
Just for this year, because we still have a few months left. So what are your goals for the rest of the year?
Well, the rest of the year would be to bust my ass as best I can and potentially get back to that, international title if I can. I am, after all, the longest reigning international champion.
Well, you did talk about that, obviously, with Leon Lutz, your tag team partner, a couple of weeks ago. I guess maybe Leon Lutz will get the title, and then maybe you and him can challenge each other for a duel almost. Maybe that's what you think will happen.
I mean, potentially, I would love to get in the ring and actually wrestle Leon. It could be a potentially really good barn burner, really good match.
Well, you guys were certainly in a really good tag team match. That was obviously an outage, and I think a lot of people might want to see that. But, does it motivate you, coming back to XCW for a second, does it motivate you that a lot of these guys come into the company, and not to say that they come in the company and maybe leave them hanging high and dry. There's certainly some people that, without naming names, have come on to Sportswire and, they left and they kind of left XCW in the dust. But you have been here thick and thin. Has that motivated you in a way almost to kind of do what you have done and represent the company despite maybe some of the struggles you have with Venom right now?
It definitely motivates me to put on better matches and showcase the skills that we have here in XCW. That's for sure. Because I mean, it's really disheartening and really it's a shame when people come in here and they're like, I love XCW. I want to be here. I want to stay. I want to work. And then they just end up, leaving and going away and not coming back. It's terrible.
And I agree with you on that. And I just want to say this before I get to more comments. I've always felt, and I say this all the time on the air, XCW to me is the gold standard. When I think about this sport, when I think about at this level, the type of wrestling, the storylines, the originality, the quality of the matches, the type of talent, the relationships between the people here, somebody like yourself, Chris Jones, who was on the show, obviously not too long ago. I feel like this company is the gold standard. It is truly the gold standard. When I think about YouTube, semi-pro, as Fletch calls it, when you hear that type of comment or that type of, let's say, when somebody says that, what does that mean to you personally?
Well, being referred to as like Fletch would say, semi-pro and stuff like that, it makes me feel like we really go in there and put on the best show we can possible, no matter who's in the ring. Some of us like in there aren't very good, but they ask for more training. They want to get better,
Sure.
and I enjoy when people want to get better. That shows improvement to me, and that shows that you care about XCW. You want to be here. Because I mean, we want people to watch the show. We don't want people to turn off the show. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I want to say this, and I really want to say this, and out of respect for you and certainly some of the veterans, and obviously Fletch as well. And I'm getting more comments as people are starting to come in here because they see you're on the screen. But I feel like that there are some companies that I've had on Sportswire, and obviously there's not a linear flow to it. You can tell that obviously somebody's putting it together and the quality is not there. It's almost like baking a cake, right? You have to bake a cake a certain way in order for the cake to look like a cake and taste good. And there are certain companies, whether it's the amount of people that they have or lack of that, or the type of people in there. And like you said, you could tell that they don't have the experience. But obviously, somebody like yourself who completely moves like a pro, and others, there are certainly other guys that are in the company that have those same qualities. Obviously Fletch also has a background, and there are certain other guys that, I do want to praise actually Jackson Law, because I think it's in a really intriguing storyline right now, but that's a different time, different discussion. But I really feel like with you guys, though, that I don't have any of those things. I can sit down, I may not watch the XCW shows in one setting, but I'll come back and watch it because I really enjoy what you guys do, because there is a linear flow. The show itself moves where it doesn't look like it's out of place. I mean, what does that mean to you when you hear that?
I feel like hearing stuff like that means we're putting on a good product and pushing it out very well. The editors are really good, getting our show out there, getting it all put together. Everybody does great in the ring. I mean, there's a few hiccups here and there behind the scenes. But
Sure.
that's
Nobody's perfect. Listen,
always.
I actually had this conversation with the wrestler yesterday off the air, because he messaged me on Facebook. I'm like, listen, nobody's perfect. It's okay. Things happen. There's obviously going to be things that happen. That is okay. And if you want to follow Corey Lee and XCW, you're welcome to in these links. Let me get to some comments. It's not about how many places you work. It's about the impact you make in one. And you have made an impact that certainly 100 years from now, when people go and watch XCW, they're going to see that you've made an impact. I want to say hello to our referee. You've probably heard of him, right? Mr. Festus. He says Corey Lee is God. Well, I called him a GOAT, so that's pretty much close enough. Oldest in-ring debut. Well, I mean, listen, I'm sure we could maybe debate. And speaking, though, of former opponents of yours, I'm sure you've heard of this guy, one of your former opponents in the past, Jacoby Fletcher. Hello, God. You want to say anything to one of your former opponents?
Say something to little Jacoby. Well,
Yes, sir. Correct.
I will have to say that I did enjoy working with him, and he's coming into his own very well. And I think by the time he's, 16, 17, he's going to be extremely good. Like, extremely good. He's already.
And by then, 17, 18, he'll probably own the company. He'll probably be the owner.
Yeah, he'll probably just own the company then.
I think we joked about that on the air. I don't know if it was with Chris, but certainly it was with Fletch, obviously his father. I'm like, well, by the time he's legal, he'll probably own the company at that point anyway. So we say hello to him and certainly thank him. And I want to say hello to my very good friend, Mr. Ron, out there from the state of Pennsylvania. Ron, thank you for tuning in. Hope you're well. All right, so I do have to ask, because I do have to come into the past tense, and I only realize I only have so much time with you. But I do want to ask you, you got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, I know you didn't start originally in XCW, but to get into a Hall of Fame, there are very few people in life that can say they've been inducted into a Hall of Fame. I've had on different guys, whether it was professional athletes. I've had on a couple of different guys who have done some professional wrestling stuff, and even most of those guys haven't been inducted into a Hall of Fame, but yet you got inducted. And for those that are listening and watching, I have to ask, I know you get asked this a lot now, certainly the XCW platforms, but what did it mean to you to go into the XCW Hall of Fame?
Well, like I said in my post on Instagram, when I posted a picture of it, I was very, very humbled to be put into the Hall of Fame. It's something I didn't expect that would ever happen, but it did happen.
Really? Why?
I don't know. I just at one point I just felt like some people They know who they are. Some people didn't think I was going to last long in XCW. And maybe at one point I thought the same, but unfortunately I did. So I've been here. I've only ever missed literally one show my entire time I've been here.
Well, you
And that was because
talked
I got
about,
sick.
but it's funny you said that because you, even when you had the ACL injury, when you were going through that whole, which I'm sure a year must have felt like 100 years, because I've been sick with a virus for 3 weeks and that feels long. Imagine having a year-long sickness or an injury, and you still showed up on crutches. You still were out there. And, what was that like process like then? Were you trying to prove even those doubters that were still in the back of your mind? I mean, when you were showing up here show after show after show, because you talked about the fact that you really only missed one show or two because you were sick. You just told us on the air. So, but you still showed up here. You could have easily not shown up to TV. You could have
Mhm.
easily just not bothered, said, you know what? I don't want to deal with wrestling. I can't stand it. I'm mad because I got injured, but yet you were still here all throughout 2018. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's one of those feelings like say you retire, right? And then you still want to be in the ring. It's hard to get away from something like that you've been doing for so long, right? So I was like, I'm still going to show up regardless if I'm hurt, I'm on crutches or not, because I'm loyal to XCW. I've always been loyal to XCW. So I decided to just keep going because at the time I was still an on-screen presence,
Yep.
and around that time I was also doing music in the back, so to get that stuff done. And then I was managing Joe Trigger Travis, I think I was managing him at the time,
Correct.
and then he just left us high and dry and left me high and dry at that point. So, but I continued to do what was needed of me, no matter what, even if I was on crutches.
So in a way, it was almost like maybe it helped you in terms of overcoming the stuff that you certainly went through on October 21st, 2017 to be here. Did it feel that way throughout that year, being here on XCW TV and being out there throughout that whole year? Do you think that helped you in terms of eventually stepping back into the ring?
I would have to say, it made me want to be in the ring even more. So,
Okay.
like when I was when I was hurt, because I felt like I still had you always feel like you have stuff to prove all the time, no matter what. And I just wanted to be in the ring, work with the other guys at the time, put on great shows, put people, push people further than they've ever been pushed before, and make them see that they are, as they can be as good as me if they just put in the effort, they just
I
try.
don't know. I gotta be honest. I'm gonna be totally straight up in this, and I wasn't gonna mention names, but I don't even think everybody says, and I love Jack Delta, but everybody says, Jack Delta, he's the guy in the backyard. Anthony Steele, oh, he's the guy. All the guys they talk about in these different places, IMF and different this one and that one. You're Corey freaking Lee. I mean, I love all these different people that come on. I would put you on the par of guys that I have on that are in the pros. I mean, the way you move in the ring, what you do. So there's nobody that's going to touch you. I mean, I'm going to be totally straight up. I mean, I've gotten to know your work over the past several months, obviously working with the company. And I see it because I watch, to be totally straight up, I probably watch, except for the last couple of weeks, I just been near bedridden. I can't tell you how sick I've been. But up until the last few weeks, I probably watched 10 to 15 hours a week alone of wrestling content. And you're right there. You're with the guys that I cover in different places. So nobody's going to touch your shoes. I'm going to tell you right now, you can take it whatever the way you want. You can, use it for a grain of salt. And I'm going to say this also on the air. I wasn't going to do it, but you know what? Now I am. I announced a couple days ago that we're going to have a Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's going to be like the WWE Hall of Fame, but when I get it started and when I certainly do that stuff and starting in November, I'm going to bring you on before the end of the year. I'm going to induct you into my Hall of Fame, the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, because you definitely need to be as recognized as much as possible. So you heard it here first. You can take it for whatever the way you want, but you are going to be inducted into my Hall of Fame. And I want to say hello to somebody else who's a pro wrestling star, who, by the way, is in the UK. He's also on YouTube, has a big following. He's a champion in his own right. I mean, and he's up at 3:25 in the morning. His name is the Tribal Cheese, the Big Cheese Logan. He works for one of our very, very favorite companies like XCW, Cutlery Championship Wrestling. And he says, it's great to see a friendly face only woke for a toilet. Catch you soon. Yeah, because I was going to say, it's 3:25 a.m. your time. I mean, I appreciate that you tuned in. And by the way, follow him on YouTube at Man Manx, over 1,000 subscribers. He meets, by the way, all the superstars in the world. He met Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley, Bobby Lashley. He meets all the famous actors, all the people I watch in the big screen, and he's up at 3:25. I'm like, well, I appreciate you tuning in, but thank you to the Tribal Cheese, and I'll definitely see you in the next few weeks on Sportswire Radio. So obviously, I have to bring up your cousin. Now, your cousin's a very interesting individual. He's actually holding a championship in the same company that you have had, but he's really had a much different way and a much different path to getting into XCW and holding gold, unlike you. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you have been royalty in this company. Your cousin, Justin Parsley, obviously he's one half of the First Reel, the tag team champions in XCW. He had a much different path, and he said some different things here on Sportswire about you. So, I mean, what's your opinion now of your cousin being in this company and now also coincidentally holding gold the same time you are?
I'd have to say that I'm very proud of my cousin. I'm very happy that he decided to come join us over at XCW. I know it took an incredibly long time. About time. It took an incredibly long time. We worked previously in his company of UIW a really long time ago. That was when I was just starting out in XCW and I wanted to wrestle more, so I wrestled for his show as well. And then eventually it was just XCW. But it's really nice to have him come into the show. It's nice to also have Rob Slater back into the show and them tag teaming together, which is really awesome that they're both tag team champions together, because they've never been tag champs together ever. So it's really cool that they are tag team champions right now.
And in terms of, like, for you, like, having him in the locker room, in the company, I had asked Justin, well, do you give advice? Do you want to, like, mingle in the locker room? Do you try to, like, make pointers with different people if they ask you? Like, having him in the locker room, how is that maybe, if at all, changed your presence in the locker room, knowing that your cousin is here also?
I feel that Parsley helps extremely well in the back. People ask him for advice. They want pointers, tips, stuff for like he's really good at talking on the mic. So people ask him for pointers for talking on the mic.
By the way, he's a big talker. Justin Parsley, your cousin, could talk. He's like the Ric Flair of talking. He could talk to the broom and he'd have a conversation with it, and it'd probably, like, he'd still be going. I mean, that's the truth.
But yeah, he's extremely helpful in the locker room, and it's really great to have him in the locker room to help out the younger talent and help them get better. So,
no question about that. He has certainly done that. I speak to him quite a bit off the air. I won't reveal some of the things he says off the air, but I'm sure I'll definitely have him back on Sportswire Radio. Now, I have to ask you this question. I know you guys have squared off years ago, but he kind of talked about this to me on the air, and I actually have a comment here toward this. I have a few comments. I knew I was poking the bear here a little bit, but, I guess I don't know how much time we're going to see your cousin in the ring, and I know you've obviously gone through some different things. Now, I know you're preoccupied right now with Eric Mason. You also want some other gold back, namely the international title, and I would still not count you out by a long shot for the XCW championship, if XCW still exists, depending on Venom's leadership. But would you want to maybe test your skills in a family match against your cousin, Mr. Parsley's, the first reel, the highlight reel that he is? I mean, would you want to maybe show your skills against his skills while we have you both in the company?
I think a match between me and Parsley would potentially bring in great numbers. I think we'd do really well together. We'd mesh well.
He said when he was on the show, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm not the guy who looks at the ratings or looks at the views. It's not my company. But he claims that anytime he's on an XCW show, that the viewings go up, the viewership and the analytics and the engagement. So he's claimed since he's come into this company that numbers are through the roof. I mean, do you buy that?
I mean, they potentially could be. I mean, all it takes is sharing to the right people and for them to share and just to get the content out there. I mean, Maybe they are whenever he's on there, whenever he's in the show, you know? Maybe they're not. Maybe he's
But
pulling
don't
our
you
leg.
think though? But don't you think in a way that's a slight toward you because you're on every single show and you wrestle on every single show just about. You're Corey Lee. I mean, you're a Hall of Famer. You're the GOAT. I mean, you're this larger than life wrestler. You're the Michael Jordan of this company. I would dare say you're one of the Michael Jordans of this sport. I mean, just you being on TV, you being on YouTube where you can find XCW's content that people want to watch you because it's Corey Lee. That's that curiosity factor. So do you feel that maybe he's in a way slighting you because he's giving himself more credit than maybe he's giving you?
Uh, Maybe he's just trying to just inflate his ego, you know, stroke that ego a little bit that he has,
Well, yeah, I mean,
that he's always had, you know. Maybe I need to knock him down a peg or something. You know, who knows? Who knows? Maybe we need to step in the ring together and see who's better, right? Maybe that'll
well, I
happen one day.
mean, I think certainly again, what would it be best for business? I mean, I think I said this on the show. I think it was Justin. You came on, and your cousin's here. Actually, I'm going to basically break the fourth wall. He's here. I'll get to his comments, but I think I had Justin on about 2 or so months ago on Sportswire, right before Summer Mania, and actually, I think right after Summer Mania. Actually, I had him right on after the match with Fletcher, and I think I said that could be best for business because again, we don't know how much time we have with you and him in the same company, so why not? And speaking of things, let me get to a ton of comments because now people are starting to really get warmed up. I want to say hello to Adonis Felios, Evening Tom. I want to say hello to somebody from Australia. Another person you'd probably be good for a podcast for, Mr. Ace Reed. He's the host of the Wired Up podcast. It is 12:32 p.m. his time there, and he probably appreciates the fact that I'm the only person that always knows Australia time because I pretty much interviewed everybody around the world in their time zone, so I know it like the back of my hand. And I'm also very good at telling time because why? I actually work and get up overnight. Corey Lee, this is what your cousin is saying. Corey Lee is larger than life. I can't believe you're lucky enough to have him on. Yeah, well, that's how I feel. I mean, so certainly that's why I called him, by the way, the real world champion when I introduced him, unlike Trinity when he came out to the ring. Just saying, love Trinity. But also, your cousin would like to say that I'll be the Pippin to his MJ any day. Well, there you go. All right. Well, maybe that's certainly that. And I want to say hello to Craven Rage, who is the WC All Out Champion. He would love to say that the legend Corey Lee, he admires his craft in the ring. And honestly, you're one of the best in this era. I'd love to see you make it to the WWE. Well, I mean, we'll certainly see. I mean, never say never, I guess. But, I did want to talk to you, though, about something else before I come back into a few other things, get into a couple of stuff in the current day, and obviously get into some closing thoughts. But you had thought about stepping away a few years ago, but you came
Yes.
back. For those
Yes.
that are listening and watching, talk about that.
That was around the time I was just feeling really, really burnout. Like sometimes I get that feeling still, right? Because I mean I've been going for so long at this point, just nonstop, every year. I know we get our winter break and stuff that we usually take around winter time. We have content that we push out, but just like sometimes there was a couple of years where I was just in the main event and I was having to carry the company the entire time. And that was a rough time for me because just it burnt me out so fast. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love wrestling in the ring. I love working with all the guys, helping them get over, helping them, enhance their craft, all that. I enjoy all that. I do. But sometimes it wears on you, Sometimes it just wears on you. Like we've talked about my injuries. Like I've got 2 hurt knees. I've got 2 herniated discs.
The torn ACL. I mean, you've had like some really like tough injuries. You've had hand injuries. I mean, like you have been like, like I always say to people all the time, wrestling is real because the injuries, you can't fake an injury. When you get hurt, and you've had, your share of injuries.
There was a dark match I did with DJ Walbert. We had a dark match.
Yep. I know.
And we went for a test of strength and I went down and my right knee just went and I partially tore my meniscus. It was like the only time I ever told them we had to stop the match. It's the only time I've ever done that. We ended up redoing the match and I did the dark match. But I was in some
first of all, listen,
I was in some very bad pain.
I've had some injuries, not like that level. I mean, but how did you finish that match with a partially torn meniscus? I mean, I know a guy who had a torn meniscus, and it was like he could barely like lift up on it, and he didn't get the surgery for whatever reason. He didn't get it. He
Yeah,
says he eventually.
they said for me I didn't need the surgery for the partially torn meniscus. Like for the ACL, when I completely tore the ACL, I had to have that done.
Well, the
When,
ACL is a totally different ballgame. That's
yeah, so
totally.
when I tore that, that just went. I wasn't in pain from that, and I finished the rest of the season on the torn ACL. So then I finished the rest of the time wrestling on a partially torn meniscus. But like the meniscus is probably the most painful, other than my back. That's probably the most painful.
So how do
So
you feel now, though? I mean, obviously you were burnt out a few years ago, but how is your mind right now mentally in terms of wrestling in the company?
um, that's a tough question. That's a tough question for me.
I'm known to do that. That's why I'm here for as long as I've been here on Sportswire. So that I'm known to do that.
There's still some people that would like to wrestle me, but honestly, I don't know how much more time I have left at this point to be in the ring, even though I do want to keep wrestling. Because I mean, like I said, the injuries add up over time. Like
Oh, sure.
Fletch has had a lot of injuries, and I know he would love to step back, but he's unable to. So we're kind of in a position like for both me and him, like, do we step away or does the company just need us? Because I feel at some point the company's not going to need me anymore, even though I love wrestling. Like maybe I could be there in a different capacity. But
Would
who
you
knows how
like
much
to
longer
be?
I have left.
Would you like to work in a different capacity on behalf of the company? Would you like to be somebody that helps out in different ways? I don't want to pry into business, but is that something that you would like to still be involved in wrestling with?
Of course, I try to help everybody in the locker room any way I can. Training if they need me, stuff like that. Anything, no matter what. Story work. Talking on the mic like Parsley does for other people.
Yep.
Because they go to Parsley, they'll go to like Tommy Merriman for work on the mic, stuff like that. Any kind of advice that I can give, I'll be there to help, no matter what.
And I think certainly your career and what you've done in the ring, I would definitely want to ask you for questions, and I would want to basically annoy you all day because they always say I have a lot of guys come on, and the guys that I have on that are pros, that they come up the ladder. There was one guy in particular, RP Davis, who kind of has a relationship with William Regal in the UK, and he's known to just annoy him. He'll literally email him, text him, message him left and right just because he really wants to. And it's paid off because in the UK, he wrestled Anthony Ogogo last year. He's moved up and worked in different companies and he's holds 3 world titles. So I think that actually is a good thing here. And I certainly think that we hope to see you. And, I'm glad that you said some of those things because I feel like that with guys, like, again, going back to something I said before we transition to the last parts of the show, is that, when I mention your name, you're on the list that everybody wants to wrestle you. There's like a list where it'd be like, if I were to like open the door, the waiting list would be like around not just the block, it'd probably be like the whole neighborhood. People really like from all over want to wrestle you. I mean, how does that make you feel knowing that there are people, not just in XCW, but other companies and other places, when they hear your name, they say, you know what? I want to wrestle Corey Lee. I want to test my skills against him because, again, he is the best.
Well, it makes me feel extremely humbled, that's for sure. Because I mean, I got to work with Jack Delta, who I loved working with, by the
I
way.
know Mr. Delta very well, and he was one of the names
Yes,
I was kind of referencing in different ways. Yes, I know Mr. Delta
I
very
did
well.
enjoy working with him. When I met Aaron Blaze for the first time in UAW,
Know him
I
very well as
wrestled him.
well.
He said he was nervous to wrestle me. I told him he didn't have to be nervous. That I've seen his stuff. I thought he was going to be okay. We worked fine together, stuff like that. But like, if anybody wants to wrestle me at all, anybody, all they have to do is come on down to XCW, and I will give them a match. I mean, not on the
But
main
I think
show, not on the main show, but I'll give them a match.
I have a fault, but here's the catch, though. They have to step into the ring with you, and that means for them, they're going to have to prove why they wanted that match. And I think you're going to show them why you are the top of this sport. You are the measuring stick. You are the Mount Rushmore. So I'm going to say that. So if you want to go out and call out Corey Lee and want a match with him, in my words, I always say to different people, tread very, very lightly when you do that, because Corey Lee will certainly prove why he can. I wanted to ask you this last, in a way, past question before I ask you a few more thoughts on the current state of where you are, and then obviously get to closing thoughts. Again, I thank you so much for the opportunity. I want everybody to follow you on the platforms here underneath on Instagram at XCW_Corey Lee, and on Twitter at XCW Corey Lee. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, you can always check us out 24 hours a day on sportnarium.com/player. We're an internet radio station. If you have a podcast like the likes of the Giving Receipts show, actually hosted by AKA Fletch and some guy Jaden, who might be another guy that you have some history with. Their podcasts play all throughout the week on my internet radio station, free of charge. You get to be heard to a large audience. You get to be heard on the World Wide Web. I take care of all the maintenance. I take care of all the engineering, all the producing. All you have to do is give me your podcast. If you like what you hear from me on YouTube, you want to follow and watch previous XCW shows like from ACT, Trinity, certainly Chris Jones, Fletch, Justin Parsley's Mr. Parsley himself. You can obviously check us out on Sportswire Radio anytime at 6579 Backspace Streams. You can also follow XCW on so many different platforms in Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and also the website where you can learn about Corey Lee and his history, his long history. We could talk about all night, but I wanted to ask you maybe two last past questions. First would be, you started out on a mattress in 2009 to where we are now. What has that journey been like to see XCW and your career grow from where you started wrestling outside on a mattress to now basically being this semi-pro company? I think your mic's... There you go. I think...
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd have to say it's absolutely surreal. To go from mattresses to an actual ring it's definitely something different, right? The ring is definitely not friendly. The ring has no give to it. It's something that I feel some people want to rush through their stuff sometimes when they're in the ring. You just got to be absolutely careful when you're in something like a wrestling ring, like a real ring compared to mattresses or say a trampoline or something like that. We still have some people out there still wrestling just on straight ground, right?
Yep.
I'm at the point now in my career where I refuse to go anywhere and wrestle if it's not in a wrestling ring. So if I was to ever go anywhere else and just do something for another company or something like that, I will not wrestle for your company unless you have a wrestling ring at this point. That's all I'm saying. It's a very surreal journey for XCW to go from where it used to be to where it is now. And I loved watching every second of it change.
And you know what? And that shows the dedication and the hard work that everybody has been involved in. And certainly all the production team, people that work in the back, obviously Fletch, for the time and sacrifice that he's put in his personal life. This is real talk for a second. Real talk. Not XCW storylines. Real talk for a second. What Fletch has done in his real life to be able to dedicate the time and effort to have put XCW to where it is today, where you guys are indoors, certain points of the year, where you guys have a professional wrestling ring, where you have the roster as big as it is, where you have wrestlers that come in here, and it's real dedication, sacrifice, hard work. That's not easy, and that's why every single person watching and listening, or that will watch and listen to this on Sportswire, because I know it'll be a lot, you need to support XCW any way you can possible, whether it's giving a sub, giving a like, a follow, because I'm telling you, this is a company, and this is why I always endorse XCW and say it's the gold standard, because this is a company that has really clawed its way. Very similar to my upbringing, because I'm a guy that did not have experience. I did this on my own. Yes, I had a background in the world of politics. I have a lot of friends. It, certainly helped in sharing the links. That's great. I don't do that anymore. But I basically had to practice on my own. This is a company that had to claw its way on its own to do what it's doing right now. I want to ask you this last question in a past tense before I get a few more questions in the current tense to work on supporting Halloween Harvest. You've had so many moments, though, in your career. I could ask you hundreds of them. I can do that maybe another time. I'm sure I'll bring you back. But if I always ask this question to all of my guests of all backgrounds, and I have to ask you specifically because you are the measuring stick, you're the GOAT, you're this guy that you're on the dream list of people who want to wrestle. Is there one or two moments that stand out most in your career?
One or two moments. First moment would be, and this has nothing to do with the current storyline or anything. It's just one of the biggest moments of my career. It would be wrestling Chris Jones at Mania and stopping EBW that one time, the first time.
Okay.
That's huge to me because I'll just go into a short little thing here. Back when I did the Salvation thing, when I came up with Salvation, right? That had nothing to do with like saving the company or anything like that from EBW when I first came up with it, when I first thought of it. It just like it was the perfect thing that fit perfectly for the storyline, you know? Salvation for XCW. I needed to save the company from EBW. I felt it fit perfectly because me and Fletch talked about it. Because back then everybody knew what was going on, what was happening, what we were doing. Now nobody knows that stuff. But back then we thought
that's a better way to go about it. Because I have wrestlers all the time. I had one wrestler particularly, I won't name his name. He's like, "Hey, I want to tell you something." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to be totally straight up with you. Don't tell me." Because that way everybody will find a way to know. And I want to organically find out like everybody else because it shows that code of honor, that respect. And I'm glad you said that in terms of like, you don't want everybody to know because there's an element of surprise that I think really helps the product and lets people organically enjoy it. And that's what it's all about here. And also I have here a couple of comments from management. And please more Corey Lee on Sportswire. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would like to bring you back, obviously, before the end of the year, because I want to induct you into my Hall of Fame, because I'm going to do a Sportswire Hall of Fame. I'll do an article. We'll do a write-up on you, and I'll put it on my website, and we'll definitely make that happen. So I would hope that you'd like to come back, because I definitely love hearing you. And I also love talking XCW and all the great things that XCW has to offer. But obviously, coming in to the current now for the last 15 or so minutes of the show. And I thank you so much for being so gracious of your time, because I know certainly you have a lot going on. But what is your final words to Mr. Eric Mason before Halloween Harvest?
Well, my final words, it'll be next show is Hit the Lights, by the way.
Yep.
Okay. Hit the Lights is the next show.
Is the big show.
Halloween Harvest is after that. Okay.
Yeah, I know that. But okay. You gave him the title shot there, so I would imagine that's where
I'm pretty sure we're doing it. Hit the Lights is when we're doing the title shot.
Okay.
I'm almost positive. So my final words, regardless, to Eric Mason is, he's a big boy, right? And he thinks that he can just come in and push me around because he's, bigger than me, taller than me. And at this point, I feel like he probably bit off more than he can chew. He stepped in the ring with somebody that's on a whole other level. Like, I'm not his best friend. I'm not Hunter Halkin. I'm not anybody he's faced before. I'm not fucking, I don't want to say like James Cerebral, because James Cerebral's still good. Barely, but he's still there.
Such a long history. The fact that you said you and him have like the most interesting history. You've been on the other sides. You're okay now, obviously going back in the summer, but you and him have had like the most interesting history, maybe in XCW.
Yeah, I've actually really enjoyed working with James a lot the entire time he's ever been in the company. I think he's extremely underrated, to be honest. I feel like some people underrate him, and I feel like he's extremely good in the ring. There's a few people I feel are underrated. Like, to be honest, Hunter Halkin is a little underrated, I think. I think Hunter Halkin's a little good.
Prior shows. Yeah, you know what? I feel like I've heard that maybe when Law mentioned him a lot. I know certainly Chris Jones spoke about him. Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see you saying that because I've had on different talent, and certainly he's gotten praise here on the show.
I think he's really coming to his own, I feel, in the show now too. And I feel like this is also a point that I need to get across to Eric Mason. Maybe he just needs to learn how to come into his own. If he wants to be better in the XCW ring, he needs to show me that he can be better in the XCW ring, that he could hang with the big boys, as they would say.
And Cradle from the Grave is a match that certainly he's going to have to prove it. And I don't think he knows what he's getting into. Is that fair to say?
I'd have to say it's fair to say. I mean, he's going to have to climb a ladder at one point, and maybe he just won't want to climb the ladder. I feel like this match will benefit me more than it's going to benefit him.
So is it fair to say then, as we're spending a few more minutes on the current, is that this was a match that you, to use James Cerebral's name, cerebrally almost kind of like said, yeah, this is why I'm granting him that match. Going back to what we spoke about at the top of the hour, that basically from a cerebral standpoint, this is why you want this match. So you can kind of once and for all put Mr. Mason in the grave.
Exactly. And I feel like he's just going to have to, like I said before, prove that he can just hang. Like, if he can't hang, maybe he should just leave. Does he want to main event SummerMania one day? Does he want to be world champion one day? Or is he just too concerned about this real world title? Is he just too concerned about the new age title? Is it because he wants that international title? At this point, does he even need the new age title? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe he's just mad at me. Maybe he just wants to try to make an example out of me at this point. He's just frustrated.
Are you saying he's not focused? His priorities aren't in line. Is that what you're trying to tell us here?
Yeah, I don't think he's focused. I mean, look back at when he lost the belt to me. He was too upset that he lost the belt because he was that close to the lucky number 7, so he could get that international title shot against his best friend, and he lost that chance because I took it from him. And now he just wants to try to take the belt back, to try to get back up there, but it ain't going to happen because I'm not going to let him win. He's not beating me in this match. He's not taking this title back.
So this is where your veteran experience comes in, and his kind of rookie lack of experience, letting his emotions get ahead of him. And that's where he slips up. And that's where you kind of come in and prove once and for all why the New Age title should officially be the Real World Championship, because you really are the Real World Champion in XCW.
Yes, I'd have to agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. And it looks like management has also confirmed it was Hit the Lights. I don't know why I feel like I heard Halloween Harvest at some point during the show. I don't know why I heard that, but that certainly could also mean that my ears need to get checked, which could always be the case. So I do want it from management standpoint. And of course, we will have more XCW coverage ahead this month on Sportswire Radio. So stay tuned for more details, because you will certainly have some talent from XCW. I have no doubt that is going to come back on. So definitely you'll be very, very excited about that for sure. And I also here want to ask you one or two more questions, and obviously get to closing thoughts here. And is there anything that you want to say to those that are hearing you for the first time, and why they should watch not only you, but XCW?
It's very simple. If you want to see quality wrestling content in the backyard, semi-pro, whatever, if you just love wrestling, check out XCW. XCW is amazing. XCW is fun to watch. We have some great talent. We have, Brogan O'Shea. We have Brady Branson, unfortunately.
Liano Diaz. And
Liano Diaz.
ACT. Jay Ellis, by the way, has come on, and he's been a linchpin in things. Aaron Blaze is now part of the roster. Chris Jones is back. Your cousin. And boy, if I don't mention your cousin, if I don't mention Justin Parsley, I'm going to hear a message. He's going to say, you didn't mention me, so I have to mention Justin Parsley. Of course, Rob Slater. I have to mention Leon Lutz. Leon Lutz, who you were tag teaming with on Outage. I mean, you have a list of talent here. It's endless in terms of the amount of stars. There's almost a star for everybody. Jackson Law, another person. If I don't mention Jackson Law, I'll never hear the end of that. I mean, Fletch, of course. I mean, you've got talent almost dripping out of this company. That's why you guys literally are explosive.
Yeah, we have such great talent in the ring. It's a great presence in the back and in the locker room as well. People, we get along, we joke around, stuff like that. It's all a good time at XCW. We go out there, put on the best show possible for everybody out there on YouTube, anywhere else that you see us. Yep. So it's appreciated for all the support that we get, because we got our own merchandise shop now with everybody got, their own shirts and stuff like that. Like, a lot of work has been put into XCW since 2003. And like you said earlier, Fletch has sacrificed a lot, and he has put a lot into this company.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you got to give it up for Fletch for a second. And what he's done, and basically, this man has sacrificed his life, literally, figuratively, and literally. He has sacrificed his life putting into XCW. The amount of hours that he puts into XCW to go out and make sure that it is running the way it runs. I mean, nobody does what he does out there. You find me a promoter, independent, semi-pro, backyard, YouTube, underground, Mickey Mouse. I mean, there's nobody out there. Vince McMahon is not doing what he's doing anymore to what Fletch is doing. Fletch basically dedicates between his family and his wife, and now obviously Jacoby, we know one day will reap the benefits of this, but the fact of the matter is that he has put so much into it. And that's why you want to support this company so much and do everything you can, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the website, because this is a company, I promise you, I'll continue to say it till I no longer can. It is the gold standard. I want to ask you one more last question for fun. Is that what's up with the snow? Now, is the snow from Boise, Idaho? Because everybody talks about the snow. When you come out in the ring and there's snow, I got to ask you one fun question.
Okay. One fun question. Okay. Well, it goes back to the gimmick now. The gimmick of I think I'm literally God himself. Okay.
Yes, I saw the documentary on you. I saw
Yeah.
that.
So a long time ago when we were filming, I was outside. It was during a Tri-Brand show. And I was like, you know what, guys, I'm just gonna throw my hands up and I'm gonna stop the wind because it was so windy. Like, I mean, like this isn't even a joke. I'm not even playing. This really happened. I put my hands up and the wind stopped. It completely stopped for the rest of the day. It didn't do anything for the rest of the day.
Wow.
And then there was another time where me and Fletch were talking before we started filming. We were talking and it was raining on one side where everybody was, and it wasn't raining where we were.
So, well, I've actually had that instance. I do some work in politics, and one day I was canvassing, and on the other side of where I was in Brooklyn, New York, and on one side of the street I was on, it was raining. The other side was like sunshine, because this one particular area, it's like they get one section of like one area, and then the other section they get it like inland. It's like the weirdest thing, and I actually have had that experience. It's like the weirdest experience I've actually.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then when I did the heel turn in Allegiance, which was one of my other bigger moments. Like this is when Genocide was still around. So like me and Fletch had talked about the heel turn, and everybody really assumed, because this was when I was going to retire. So everybody assumed I was going to actually retire after this match. And I was talking to him. I was like, why don't we just do a gimmick where I literally just think I'm God, like I'm above everybody else, And then eventually he brought up, hey, let's put snow in your entrance package. And I wanted to do the God thing because me and Genocide joke all the time after the wind and stuff like that. Some people would come up like our referee Festus, he go, God. And then Genocide would always be screaming in the background. He goes, you're not God. You're not God. So he'd just be screaming it. So I wanted to do this heel turn because, the rest of his soul, I wish he was still here with us, because he would have absolutely loved what we were doing right now. He would have enjoyed every second of it.
What did Kurt Acid mean to you?
Kurt Acid meant a lot to everybody. Like I really loved talking to Genocide in the back, Kurt Acid, Benji. Like he was a locker room leader. Always gave extremely good advice. Like we'd always talk about like scary movies, stuff like Mortal Kombat. We had a lot of stuff in common. Like I always enjoyed talking to him. He meant an absolute ton to me. He really did, and it just really sucks that he's gone. And I wish he was here today to watch XCW and see how it grows.
When I asked that question to Fletch, I asked it to Chris. Certainly Justin, who obviously Justin's here in part to that, and I obviously asked ACT, even some of the younger talent. I mean, certainly it invokes an emotion, and the best thing we can do is honor his presence by continuing. And speaking of people who are here, I want to say hello to Mr. Law. He says God, and He's in his own interesting storyline, so I say hello to him before we say sayonara. And obviously, I had to ask you about the snow, and for whatever reason, I was like, why doesn't he come out to the Red Hot Chili Peppers snow song with the whole snow? I was like, for whatever reason, I know it's not your kind of cup of tea, but I was like thinking, whatever reason it works. But it has certainly been a tremendous honor to have you. And you are certainly, definitely proving why each and every day you are the measuring stick. Why I think, in addition to your cousin, that you certainly bring the views, you bring the heat to XCW. If you haven't gone out yet and watched Rude Awakening, you definitely need to on YouTube at XCW Shelbyville. If you want to support the company, like buying a Corey Lee shirt or anybody else's, like a Mr. Law shirt or a Chris Jones, ACT, Fletch, anybody that you love in XCW, you can go on the XCW website, follow them on Twitter, Instagram, like them on Facebook, support this company. Also, Corey Lee, support him on all of his social medias. He is definitely somebody that I know we're going to definitely beg to come back onto Sportswire Radio. I want to give you the floor now. I want to give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. And there's certainly been a tremendous Hall of Fame-like honor to have had the real world champion on here. No, sir, I give you the floor. Anything else you'd like to say, share to the audience, the floor is yours.
Well, I just want to say that we talked about earlier about what like XCW meant and like what would I say to get people to watch XCW, and another answer is simple, that XCW isn't just for fun for us. It used to be. It's still fun, but XCW at this point it's our life. It's literally life to us. Every single person that's out there, it's our life now, and we go out there to do the best for everybody in the show, everybody watching. It's our life, just like it's Fletch's life. It's all of our lives now at this point. Like, there's nothing else we love more. Even if we get frustrated, even if we get annoyed, no matter what, XCW is still home, and XCW is still life to every single person that steps inside that ring or comes over there, takes pictures, does anything for the show. XCW is our life. It's almost our job. It's almost our job, but it is more than a job to us. It's definitely our life, and we appreciate any and all support that we get.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's why I cannot stress enough why you should support XCW in any humanly way possible, because this isn't like when other companies come onto Sportswire, whether they're pro, whether they're in the UK, whether they're in the Yard, whether they're in Mickey Mouse, whether they're in whatever else they want to identify themselves for. This is a company that's run like a small business. This is a company that's a homemade company that's out there, mom and pop, as they used to say, mom and pop shops. This is a company that does everything from scratch. This is a company that is out there trying to make the people happy, put smiles on there. If you can support them in any way possible, watch the show, follow, subscribe, go on the social media accounts, visit the website, maybe buy a t-shirt, whatever it is. Go out there and support this company. I cannot stress that enough. This is why here on Sportswire Radio, I always say, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryson, XCW is the gold standard. And this is why I endorse this company. And I will continue to endorse this company as much as I humanly can, because of not only talents like Corey Lee, Chris Jones, although he's an EBW at the moment, ACT, Trinity, although Trinity didn't say the real world champion when Corey Lee came out, Fletch certainly, and Mr. Law when he came on the show, a who's who of other people that'll come on here and will come on in the coming weeks and months. This is a company that you really want to go out of your way and support. I promise you, it'll definitely be worth it. I can't thank you enough. I could obviously speak with you all night, but I obviously realize that you've got different things going on. I want to be respectful of your time, but there will be a part two, because I want to induct you into my Hall of Fame so you can be into two Hall of Fames, because it seems like now the people want me to put a Hall of Fame out there, and I will do it because I have been doing it. I'm closing in on my 5-year anniversary, so obviously I want to do something special for the fans, but we'll definitely talk about that. But congratulations on the win at Rude Awakening. I'm looking forward to watching you defend your real world championship against Eric Mason. Thank you for all that you do out there. You've definitely proved why you're a Hall of Famer, why you're the GOAT, the measuring stick, and everything else in between. And I can't wait to watch you out there at Hit the Lights. And we look forward to speaking with you very soon. And congratulations.
Thank you. You have a good night, Tom.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, that was Corey Lee, our reigning, defending XCW real world champion who just successfully won his match against Eric Mason, but still gave him a cradle to the grave match for that real world championship. It hit the lights here. You'll see that the next show coming up here, plus much, much more from XCW coverage. And my name again is the Reverend Tom Rice, your voice of Bill Wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio. And if you're on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming. I'll be back on the air Friday, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all the latest happenings in the world of sports, including the NFL. We'll talk a little bit of wrestling, and I'll be back here Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time with C2K, who recently retired from the yard. He'll talk about that and some, plus Monday afternoon, UK time evening. I'll be here with Callum Majakester, the upgrade one half of the NSAW Tag Team Champions. He'll be at All Hallows Eve. We'll talk about that and some. But until then, thank you, everybody, and thank you to all of the XCW universe for tuning in here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.